America, millions on alert for severe weather right now. The central U.S. bracing for a spring blizzard. 13 states about to be hit by snow and whiteout conditions. The major system on the move, already wreaking havoc out west, forcing these water rescues. Winds whipping up this dust storm, knocking out power across parts of California and shutting down a big concert overnight.
Also right now, another Homeland Security shakeup as President Trump doubles down on the border battle and faces the Democratic deadline for release of his tax returns.
Terrifying close call. An 18-wheeler caught on camera plowing through cars, then slamming into a daycare. How all those children escaped uninjured.
The new warning this morning about one of the most popular baby rockers after reports of more than 30 deaths. Doctors now demanding a recall.
New trouble for Lori Loughlin. The actress and 15 other parents slapped with new charges in that college admissions scandal. They could face decades behind bars, and a look this morning at what life in prison could be like for those convicted.
And the party going all night long for retiring NBA star Dwayne Wade. Getting one last dance at home, the tributes, and the triumph.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
And Good Morning America, what a great final home game for Dwayne Wade.
Finally retiring after all these years, and a lot of fans there who cheered him on, of course, including Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, who were sitting courtside. Some really good friends. And they had a crazy close call. The action spilled on.
That's right.
From the court to off the court.
Great seats right next to Dwayne Wade's wife,
Sitting so
Gabrielle
close,
Union. Yeah.
Triple referee, they say.
That's sad. We'll have more on that ahead. But first, we begin with that blizzard that is set to blast the middle of the country. Millions bracing for what could be a record-setting snowstorm. This as the West faces flooding, strong winds overnight. Ginger, of course, tracking all the latest for us. Good morning, Ginger.
Robin, good morning. High winds canceled those concerts in Southern California, and you saw whiteouts already in Montana. There are wind alerts all the way from New Mexico to those blizzard warnings in Nebraska, South Dakota, and Minnesota. That is where the heart of the storm is going to hit.
For days, the West Coast blasted with devastating high winds and rising waters. Overnight, winds gusting up to 70 miles per hour in California, toppling trees and power lines. Fire crews responding to 100 calls in Fresno in just 90 minutes. This 50-foot tree, ripped from the ground, sent crashing into this Baldwin Park home in Los Angeles County. The westbound freeway near Crenshaw backed up for hours after a tree fell onto the road. Power poles plucked from the ground, knocking out power for thousands. The winds kicking up this dust storm on the California-Nevada state line. The dust so thick, it set off fire alarms. The stormy pattern flooding parts of Washington state, too, triggering high water rescues. Firefighters escorting this man to dry land in Pullman, clutching the front of a bulldozer. And this video, just released, a vehicle crushed by a power pole pinned under live wires over the weekend.
And I want to remind you, the area covered in red does not just mean that you could get a foot or a foot and a half of snow. That's not what blizzard means. Blizzard means that you have wind, and we're talking about gusts of 50 to 60 miles per hour. Let me take you through the timing now. That low pressure system really develops today. We will see severe storms on the front of it in Kansas, Missouri, parts of Nebraska, but it is that tight line where the snow and the rain snow line mix is going to happen. That's where you're going to end up with the highest totals. So somewhere between kind of central and northern Nebraska into much of South Dakota and far western Minnesota. It is going to be ugly all over the board there. Michael?
Definitely not springtime weather, Ginger. And the airlines, they're already issuing travel waivers ahead of the blizzard for the plains and the Midwest. Minneapolis could get buried by snow, and that's where Alex Perez is right now. Good morning, Alex.
Hey, good morning, Michael. We're talking about the two things that people in this area never want to hear together, snow and April. Check it out. I'm standing on top of a salt pile, one of many in the area, and all of this is going to be very, very important in the next several hours. Minneapolis is still moving smoothly right now, but all of that is going to change. Some areas could see as much as 1 to 2 inches of snow an hour. And here is the bad news. The effects of this storm, well, they're going to linger probably for the rest of the week. George?
Okay, Alex, thanks very much. We're going to go to the White House now, where President Trump is cleaning house at the Homeland Security Department, lashing out at President Obama as he pushes for tough new measures to deal with the migrant crisis at the border. Our chief White House correspondent, John Carl, put some tough questions to the president in the Oval Office. And, John, let's start with those new moves at Homeland Security.
George, we have the secretary out, the acting deputy secretary out, also the departure of his choice to head the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement Agency. And I am told to expect more departures in the coming days. What's behind all of this is the White House and the president specifically does not believe that the Department of Homeland Security leadership has been aggressive enough in enacting his policies to control the border. So this is really about the border policy, and expect with these changes, the White House to try to push through some changes specifically to make it a lot harder for people to declare asylum when they cross the border
And
illegally.
John, one of those policies had been the family separation policy. You put some tough questions, many tough questions to the president about that yesterday in the Oval Office. Let's look.
You wouldn't start separating the children again, would you, Mr. President?
Obama separated the children, by the way.
Would you consider doing it
Just so
again?
you understand, I'm the one that stopped it. President Obama had child separation. Now, I'll tell you something. Once you don't have it, that's why you see many more people coming. They're coming like it's a picnic, because let's go to Disneyland.
And now, John, it's not true that President Obama started that separation policy, and it's unclear exactly what the president wants to do right now.
He seems to be debating himself. He is saying that he is not going to bring back child separation, but he's also saying that that has negative consequences. The bottom line, he wants to make it a lot tougher to come into this country illegally.
Okay, John Carl, thanks very much. Also in Washington, Attorney General William Barr faces more questions about the Mueller report today as the clock ticks on the deadline set by Democrats for the release of President Trump's tax returns. Our senior congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, tracking it all. And Mary, the Attorney General promised the Mueller report within days, but Democrats unlikely to be satisfied with what he releases.
Yeah, George, well, the Attorney General says the report will be released within a week, but it will not be the full report. There will be some redactions. Now, Bill Barr is promising to be as transparent as possible, including even saying that he's going to color code those redactions so the public can see why certain information is being withheld. But that is not going to cut it for Democrats that I've talked to up here. They are still demanding the full report and the underlying evidence. Now, Bill Barr will be back up here for round 2 today, and he is expected to be grilled once again on his handling of this report, on how he came to his conclusions, and also any communications that he's had with the White House. George.
Yeah, he wouldn't answer that question yesterday. It seems like he may have briefed the White House on the full report right there. Meantime, the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, also on Capitol Hill yesterday, getting tough questions about the president's tax returns.
Yeah, and the Treasury Secretary says he is reviewing this request and that the administration will follow the law. But, George, he notably did not give a clear answer on whether they're going to actually comply with this request. The president has insisted that he can't turn over his tax returns while he is under an ongoing audit. But his acting chief of staff has said the Democrats are never going to get their hands on his tax returns. Today is the deadline the Democrats have set, but it seems this deadline is going to come and go without us seeing any action on this issue. George, it does seem that this fight could be headed towards the courts.
Yeah, and he could also quite questions today, Mary, about whether he coordinated with the White House on this issue, which some Democrats believe is against the law.
Yeah, he did mention yesterday that there may have been some communication between the two groups. It is something that I'm sure Democrats are going to continue to demand answers on.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. Michael?
All right, George, now look at that terrifying close call that's caught on camera. An 18-wheeler in Alabama losing control, plowing through cars and slamming into a daycare center. Thankfully, all the children inside were uninjured. A few adults did suffer minor injuries, but all are expected to recover.
Good to hear that they're expected to recover. Now to the mystery that is surrounding that American woman that was held hostage in Uganda. Kimberly Sue Endicott has been released, but the big question is, where is she? Ian Pannell is in Uganda with the latest. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Robin. A senior Ugandan police commander telling ABC News this morning that they now have 10 suspects in custody, all in connection with that kidnapping, although they're not saying whether any of those suspects are the actual kidnappers. Investigations likely to go on for days as questions about the American tourist still go unanswered.
American tourist Kimberly Sue Endicott was taken to the U.S. Embassy here in Kampala. But overnight, Ugandan officials say they won't comment on her whereabouts further so she could recover from what they call her trauma. No comment from the U.S. Embassy either. Masked gunmen ambushed and kidnapped Kimberly Sue and her guide last week. They were on a safari in Queen Elizabeth National Park. 2 elderly Canadians left behind then contacted the authorities. The kidnappers demanding $500,000 to release Kimberly Sue. Local officials negotiating with them for days, eventually securing her release. ABC News learning a ransom was paid, but Ugandan officials remaining firm they didn't pay it. More people arrested overnight, now more than 10 in custody, all in connection to the kidnapping. All were picked up in the Kanungu district of western Uganda. Police say they're scouring for more suspects in at least 4 districts and across the border in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Police saying early on they had to take, quote, a calculated and tactical approach in rescuing Endicott and her guide.
Where even after establishing the exact hideout of the armed captors and the victims, we couldn't make a raid because of the impact it could actually have on the lives of the victims.
But this morning, their investigation is progressing unhindered.
Overnight, the State Department issuing a new warning about countries said to be a kidnap risk. Uganda put on that list. But officials here are going to be unhappy. They insist this incident was unprecedented and Uganda is safe. Robin?
All right, Ian, thank you. We're going to stay overseas to the Israeli elections where it appears Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu could win at a historic 5th term in office. The results too close to officially call right now, but both he and former military chief Benny Gantz are in a dead heat. Both men claiming victory, but Netanyahu appears ahead with 97% of the vote counted. Now, if he wins, he's a close ally of President Trump, he would become the nation's longest serving prime minister. Michael?
All right, thank you, Robin. And now to new developments in that massive measles outbreak. 465 cases have been confirmed in 19 states, and now officials are declaring a public health emergency in New York City, promising serious consequences if you aren't vaccinated. Errol Reshef is here with the latest. And good morning to you, Erin.
Good morning to you, Michael. This outbreak is so alarming to officials here in New York that in some areas they're now mandating the vaccine. And if people don't comply, they could face fines up to $1,000. Health officials now checking vaccination records. And it's not just here in New York that people are concerned about this. Take a look. There are hotspots popping up all over the country. We know in Washington state, they've also declared an emergency and are handing out free vaccines, and unvaccinated students in some areas of Michigan have been told to stay home, Michael.
And it's highly contagious. It could spread pretty easily.
It absolutely can. 90% of people who are unvaccinated are susceptible to contracting this disease. So if you're around it and you haven't been vaccinated, chances are you could get it. And this is also concerning. If I say I'm infected with this virus and I stand in the studio, if I leave 2 hours later, that virus is still lingering here in the studio. Anyone that's unvaccinated is at risk.
Wow. Who's the most vulnerable?
Well, of course, babies and young children who are too young to get vaccinated. You have the elderly and people with weakened immune systems, and also pregnant women, even if they've received this vaccine, could still be susceptible to complications.
All right. Thank you so much, Erin.
Yeah.
All right, George?
Good, guys. Thanks. We're going to turn now to a new warning for new parents. Consumer Reports says that the Fisher-Price Rock and Play sleeper has been tied to the deaths of up to 32 babies, and now the American Academy of Pediatrics is recommending a recall. ABC's Diane Macedo is here with the latest. Good morning, Diane.
George, good morning. The AAP is urging all parents to stop using the Fisher-Price Rock and Play sleeper immediately. They say it's a deadly product and are also calling for stores to pull it from their shelves. Now, this follows last week's warning from Fisher-Price and the Consumer Product Safety Commission to stop using the product when infants turn 3 months old or start to show rollover capabilities. But Consumer Reports now says those 32 deaths cited include babies younger than 3 months and go beyond the risk of rollover. Fisher-Price tells Consumer Reports it doesn't believe the product has caused any deaths, citing the many situations where a medical or health condition was identified as the cause of death, and or those in which the product was clearly used in a manner contrary to the safety warnings and instructions. The AAP says infants should always sleep on their back on a separate, flat, firm surface without any bumpers or beddings. We also reached out to Fisher-Price directly, guys. They say they stand by the safety of the product.
All right, Diane, thank you. Now to a superstar send-off for basketball royalty. Dwayne Wade played his last home game for the Miami Heat last night before retiring. The team, fans, people he's inspired were all there celebrating everything this man has accomplished. TJ Holmes is here with that.
Hey, good morning to you guys. Of course, NBA champion, future Hall of Famer. But did you know he sent a woman named Tamar Johnson to college. First in her family to ever go to college. She couldn't afford to do so. Did you know that in 2010, when a family's house burned down 10 days before Christmas, he sent them on a shopping spree? Did you know he's dedicated last season to a Parkland victim? So much of this farewell tour has been about his impact off the court. But last night was for the folks in Miami to see him on the court one last time. Miami Heat legend Dwayne Wade took the court in what's expected to be his last game ever on his home court in Miami. And the 37-year-old turned back the clock, dropping 30 in the Heat win.
I'm sitting here just the most thankful person in this state.
His home arena was littered with legacy shirts and banners, all paying homage to the 13-time All-Star who led the Heat franchise to its only 3 NBA championships, one of those alongside Shaquille O'Neal, and 2 more titles with his buddy, LeBron, finishing as the team's all-time leader in points, assists, and steals. The Heat honored the superstar pregame with an emotional tribute video featuring highlights from his storied career. The star-studded tributes included surprise shout-outs from President Barack Obama.
Congratulations on a great run.
And Derek Jeter.
I wish you nothing but the best.
Capped off by a special pregame introduction voiced by his son, Zaire.
My dad, Dwayne.
The grand finale was a full family affair. Wade's mother and father were on hand, with wife Gabrielle Union and baby daughter Kavaya seated courtside.
You liked it, huh?
Couldn't have started any better, as if it were scripted.
His NBA counterparts also paid their respects on the retirement tour, swapping jerseys at the end of games during the season. Wade also invited his whole team to exchange after this win. And with the help of Budweiser, Wade exchanged jerseys with those he's inspired and uplifted over his storied career, including his own mother, Pastor Jalinda Wade.
You are bigger than basketball.
At the end, the Heat legend addressed the home crowd one last time.
Wade County, I love you.
Okay, perfect night, but I'm sorry. If anything did go wrong last night, just give me a minute. Stay with me, Robin. He has this iconic thing he does where he jumps up on the scorer's table and gets the crowd hyped. So he was going to do that one last time, and look what happened. He jumps once, didn't make it. He tries a second time, and
Well, you know, he is retired now, so that may not happen.
He made a joke of it, but it took him 3 tries. Those are 37-year-old legs now, Robin.
But I'm glad you mentioned all of he has accomplished off the court as well. That is so
That's
important.
what it's been about. Yeah.
Great guy.
Another great player, last home game as well, Dirk.
He changed the game. It's hard to put this into words. Dirk Nowitzki revolutionized bat. He is the first big guy. You see big guys shooting threes now. He was the guy, right? We didn't know what to do with him when he first came to the league. But yes, 21 years with the same team, and the tributes there last night. He scored 30 last night. D. Wade scored 30 last night. Not a lot of defense last night.
Still. Give him the last game.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, TJ.
You got it.
Also, this morning we've got the latest on that new trouble for actress Lori Loughlin. She and 15 other parents hit with new charges in the college admissions scandal. Big question, will they face decades behind bars?
And the Playboy model accused of murder. We have that coming up ahead. But first, Ginger.
As fun as it is to say April blizzard and we all kind of react like, that is pretty normal, almost as normal as this. Brevard, North Carolina, the hail, the flash flooding, and the severe storms on the front end of that snowstorm today could bring you hail right here in Kansas, parts of Missouri, and Nebraska. So watch out for that. Also damaging winds possible. Your local weather in 30 seconds. First, though, the Hot Cities, sponsored by Amazon.
Everything you need, and free shipping for all. Welcome, everyone.
Feeling great today for late spring. Temperatures today starting out in the 50s. We'll hit the lower 60s late morning to around noon, and then upper 60s later today with sunshine. Again, a great feeling day with less humidity. Tomorrow is going to feel similar, and then on Friday, some late day rain, the high 73 for the weekend. More cloud cover Saturday, 76. Join us for the big parade right down Constitution, and Riverfest. Expect some showers, the high 68.
Sure hope that your
hump day.
It's off to a great start. We'll be back.
Straight from the world's best plant scientists comes Miracle-Gro Performance Organics. It's Miracle-Gro's next big thing. Organic plant food and soil that finally work.